Hello there. What is going on, everyone? We have got some big X-Wing news. Atomic Mass Games gave us a bunch of new tidbits about the 2.5 rule set, as they're calling it. The 2.5 core rules. They definitely don't want to call this a 3.0. And in a lot of ways, I still do think it feels like a third edition. And that's not even necessarily a bad thing, because a lot of games just do new rule sets as new additions. They usually don't even require you to buy new products. It's just a new rule book for a lot of games. So I feel like that's more applicable here. But we're going with 2.5. We're going to talk about some of the new things that they have showcased. Some of the new scenario rules. One of the new scenarios that they demoed. We're going to take a look at that. Also, there is a little bit more spoilers from the Pride of Mandalore pack that got spoiled this week. So I'm going to kind of run through all of those things. And at the end, like I really want to talk about with the 2.5, the new rules. I want to talk about three different things, basically. I want to talk about the scenarios, the obstacle changes, and then the bumping changes, primarily. And at the end, I'll give you like my take. So I'm going to kind of try to talk matter-of-factly, and then I'll give you my opinion if you care about that sort of thing at the end of the video. So for little admin stuff here, we are still doing the 12 Days of Life Day giveaway. We're also giving away a lightsaber with that. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. Also, big thanks to Luxury Playstyle for sponsoring the channel, sponsoring this video. Make sure you go over to luxuryplaystyle.com, check them out, get yourself some amazing tokens. They make amazing holiday gifts. Also, great prize support. You're going to save 15% if you use the code Crabbok VIP. You're also $35 orders or more are going to get a free lightsaber nunchuck token if they use that code. So and that's a good one to mark critical hits, or you could count damage or do light side versus dark side, all kinds of cool stuff like that. All right, so let's start things off because we got a lot of things to get through today. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of these previews that they gave us from the Pride of Mandalore pack. I know this came before the big 2.5 kind of rules preview. So we're gonna kind of go into this a little bit first, and we'll be kind of quick. So we do see Moff Gideon, and the big thing about this is that it's not an Outland tie. Right, it was at first called a TIE Outlander, and it was officially deemed like an Outland tie. Really, the only difference with Moff Gideon's tie, as far as the image and the one we see in The Mandalorian, is that it allows itself to land with the folded wings, and one of the benefits of that is that can land on uneven terrain, unlike regular TIE fighters. But for the most part, it's just a normal TIE, so we're just going to have to assume that Moff Gideon is flying a normal TIE fighter, and that's just the art that they went with. He's going to be at Initiative 4. He's going to have 2 charge on him as well. When an enemy ship at range 1 to 3 defends before attack dice are rolled, you may spend a charge and choose a friendly ship at range 0 to 1 of the defender. If you do, defense dice cannot be modified during this attack, and the chosen friendly ship gains a strain token. So, you know, it's a good way to kind of, you know, especially if somebody's got a lot of mods and like they got a target lock and a focus or something like that. You're like, hey, let's just see what you got without all those bonuses. So that's pretty cool. I kind of dig it. And then we have the limited 2-pip ISB Jingoist. Also at Initiative 4, before you engage, you may choose an enemy ship in your forward arc at range 0 to 1. If you do, the ship gains 1 deplete or strain token of your choice, unless it chooses to remove a green token. And so that can be nice, like if you're running a couple of those, you know, in coordination with other ships, you know, like this can be a nice way to kind of harass and just be like, get rid of your green tokens, get rid of your green. All right, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but you're going to be taking all this stuff. So that could be pretty fun. So and that's really all we got for the new previews. Some of the new TIE fighters that are going to be kind of in this Pride of Mandalore pack. So it's not all Mandalorians. It's anything kind of related to Mandalorians as well. So pretty cool way for them to kind of spread things all over the place. All right, let's talk about this live stream, because this is the big. This is why you're here. There was this big live stream, and we got to see the Razor Crest in motion. Gauntlet Fighter was not demoed during this one. This was Rebels versus Scum, and they were running Boba Fett with the Razor Crest, and then a Fang. We didn't get like the exact lists. We do know that IG-11 was on board the Slave 1, And apparently that's a really bad place for IG-11. He is a new crew. They did not show us the crew, but they kind of described the crew, and that, you know, when you can take damage, you can basically put like a fuse counter on him and get a free calculate. And once you have 2, then he flips over, and then you have like 2 rounds until he blows up. So he is kind of like a self-destruct, you know, like because he kind of goes like self-destruct mode in the show. He kind of goes self-destruct mode in the game, which makes, and he's a crew, and he was on Boba Fett. So Boba Fett's gonna have a crew that you can take IG-11, and that's really all that we are gonna know about. And this is, you know, they didn't really tell us the points or what, you know, what new changes from this 2.5 rule set that they're still working with, and into what went on into these lists fully. But we did get a little demo of IG-11, and that he basically doesn't belong on a on a fire spray. That's a takeaway that I would suggest, because he does also do a critical damage to everything at distance 1 or at range 1 of him when he blows up. So that's kind of cool, you know. So you know, so that's a fun little thing. That's a fun little tidbit. So if you'll notice here, they were using the road system. So they had, and you know, and I'm not going to go over every 2.5 change in this one. I'm going to talk more about the new 2.5 changes. But they did use the road system. So initiative token was going to be marked over here, and then they were using one of the new scenarios today, also where they have Scum and Rebellion. They have a points system for the scenarios. So I want to talk about the scenarios first, and then we got Plumber's list here. Now this is pretty cool. He had a really cool Ahsoka painted A-wing. So he had Sabine and Ahsoka both in A-wings, but I really like the Ahsoka painted A-wing. That was pretty cool. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. And Pagani gave a little bit of a update about asteroids. So they basically, I guess we'll talk about the obstacle changes first. So this is an interesting one, and this was from the chat. Obstacles are going to have a lot of changes now. And this factors into this particular scenario because obstacles are also going to be, you know, I guess more germane to scenario play, since there will be objectives on the map and you have to either get them or get close to them. And obstacles are going to be a limiter for that, because you can kind of bar somebody's way. In a way, it reminds me a lot of how Armada does objectives, but a little bit more about how Marvel Crisis Protocol does objectives, or maybe a hybrid of the two. But yeah, we did get all of this. So first off, all obstacles now prevent you from shooting when you're on them. And so that's a big thing. Basically, all obstacles now do something, and then you roll to see if they do something else. And they've pretty much all gotten worse. So basically, asteroids, you automatically get a damage for landing on it. You don't roll; you just automatically get one. And then you're going to roll a die on a hit or a crit, you suffer another damage. But these are both going to be face down. You're not going to take face up damages anymore from asteroids. It's always going to be face down, but you can take 2. So that's objectively much worse. Debris clouds, you get a stress when you move onto it. Through or overlapping, and you roll. You'll also roll a die on a hit or crit. You're going to suffer damage. So you can also still take a damage. So you have a higher chance of taking damage on a debris cloud now, or a debris cloud. Now the gas clouds, you're going to break all locks on the ship, and then you're going to gain a strain token for moving through or overlapping. And then you're also going to roll a die on a hit. You're going to gain an ion token. On a crit, you're going to gain 3 ion tokens. Well, they said 3 ion tokens, but he said ion tokens until you are ionized. I mean, there's really, if you're a small ship, 3 ion tokens is pointless anyway. So, but yes. So you know, 3 is probably the cleanest way to put it. But yes, so gas clouds are very, very, very bad now, and it's interesting because with all of these vehicles, you know, everything, like if you're overlapping a gas cloud or a debris cloud, you're also not able to shoot. And it's interesting because, well, everybody was asking, what about tractor beams? Well, they did also highlight that tractor beams are going to prevent you from moving somebody on to an obstacle. So very, very interesting there. And so that's I think that's a very, very important distinction to make. So obstacle changes are going to get an awful lot of changes. You can see out here they have some of the new scenarios kind of set up. There are obstacles all around. Obstacles also cannot go over objective tokens. So let's talk about the scenarios and these different objective tokens that are out there right now. They're using, some of the objective tokens from, I believe, the Epic Scenario pack. Those are going to be available in a print and play option. And they're also going to be in a, they said there's going to be another pack that'll also have them. So if you don't have the Epic Scenario pack, you don't have to run out and buy it. I don't know if they want people playing the Epic Scenarios since they're making their own scenarios. I don't know what's going on with that. But you're certainly more than welcome to play any scenario you would like. So scenarios are going to be interesting. There's going to be 4 scenarios at launch, with the potential of possibly more later on. They certainly sounded like they were keeping the door open for more than 4 scenarios eventually, but they're starting with 4, and of those 4, 1 will be similar to a dogfight, but not exactly, but most like a regular dogfight. But the game of X-Wing that you play now will be gone from standard play. Standard play will be one of these 4 scenarios, and that's interesting. Now, they'll be randomly selected. So they didn't say exactly how that's going to work, but I mean, random. If it's random, then it doesn't really matter how it works. It's going to be random. You're going to shuffle and draw one and surprise. It's kind of assuming that's how it works. The 4 scenarios are: one's going to be a zone control, this is the one that they're doing right now. Each of these is going to be kind of an area you want to kind of hold. It's like a capture and hold. There's a snatch and grab, so you grab something and then you kind of take it with you. There is going to be tagging points on the table, so that's similar to zone control, but you don't have to stay there. And then there's the dogfight one called Chance Engagement. And that one will still mostly be a dogfight, but it will have an objective. They said you have to fight in the middle of the table. If somebody kind of turtles up or fortresses or stays around the edge of the table, they will lose. And to me, that sounds very different than the normal type of dogfight that's here now, although that's probably the most similar out of the 4. So there are some rules for placing the obstacles. They had to be a certain distance from each other, very much kind of like placing objectives are. You can't have but the objective tokens. You can't have an obstacle overlap an objective token, but they certainly put them very, very close to them, since that's of course where people are going to be. So how do these things work? In this particular zone control, you play to 200 points. You play to 20 points. It should have been 200 points, maybe. Maybe I remember initially it was. But basically, you're going to be playing to 20 points, and you get 2 points every time you control. At the end of a round, you do scoring. If you control an obstacle, if you control an objective, you're going to get 2 points. How do you control an objective? You have to have the most number of ships at range 1 of it. Note that large and medium ships will count as 2 versus 1. So then you're just going to do kind of how much force you have at distance 1 or at range 1. That's kind of standard to a lot of type of like capture and hold or contest the objective. You have stuff like that in Legion and Marvel Crisis Protocol all the time. So a lot of these feel these feel very, very much like Marvel Crisis Protocol style objectives, and which it seems appropriate for a 3x3 mat. They seem like they're the most reasonable types of objectives that you might get. Now, in this particular one, you also get points by destroying a ship. There's a little bit of math involved, so you'll have to add up the ship's value and then divide it by 10 and then round it up, and that's how many points that you will get. So if I blow up your ship, or if you fly your ship off the board or destroy your own ship somehow, or anytime a ship is removed from play, your opponent will then gain those points. And so you might get 2 points for holding 1 objective. You might get 4 points for holding 2 objectives. You might get 6 points for holding 3. But you might get 10 points for blowing up a 100-point ship, right? Something like that. So that's kind of how that works. And then they certainly proceeded to play those scenarios. Now, I want to talk about the other thing that happened in this game, and it's bumping and range 0 attacking, because we had a lot of bumping and range 0 discussions. So first off, bumping a friendly ship, that's going to be bad. You'll roll for damage, kind of as you do with obstacles, and you also lose your action step, which is bad. Now if you bump an enemy ship, it's not quite as bad. because you can still perform a printed focus or calculate and then skip your perform action step. So you can still get your focus or calculate. And if it happens to be red, that's why they said perform the printed one, because they didn't go into if you can do a linked. If you can link that to something else. I'm not sure. It doesn't sound like they want you to be able to do a linked focus into something else or anything like that. Just perform just the focus or just the calculate. So if it's red or if it's purple or something like that, you're gonna have to follow all of those. So that's why they want it to be the printed version. But it does sound like you're still going to get that stuff. So if you've got like, hey, when you perform a focus action, get 2 focus tokens, maybe you'll still be able to do that. We'll have to see. Now, once you bump an enemy ship, once you're touching, or if they bump you, or if you bump both. Let's talk about if you bump both, you still are considered having bumped a friendly ship, so you actually get the worst penalty, which is no action and roll for damage. So it's worse. You're not even going to get that focus out of there if you bump, like if you happen to be bumping 2. So that's how that works. Now, after you bump or somebody bumps you, you can still shoot at range 0. But they wanted to make sure it's like the worst attack you can get. So not only does range 0 no longer give you a modifier, so you're not going to get your extra die like you would at range 1. Although they did say that Arvel Krind would still get that. All those cards and pilots that give you bonuses to being able to attack at range 0 or something like that. Are now going to like do something they said probably just also give you the damage bonus or the extra die at range 0, because normally you're not going to have any extra dice at range 0. So if you're bumping, you can still take your normal attack, but no bonus. So the other bad thing about attacking somebody at range 0 is you cannot modify your dice. It's just a straight roll. It doesn't matter if you have a target lock and a focus or any of that stuff. You can't modify your dice at all. Defender still can. Defender still can't. So it's a very much weighted against you style of attack. Now they're not going to get any bonus defense dice either. So range 3 through a rock is probably still your best your best defensive kind of situation. But it makes for a pretty good defensive situation if you're the defender and a range 0 attack, because you can still modify your defense dice. But also the attacker can't modify your defense dice. So if I've got some ability that makes you turn an evade back into a focus or something like that, I'm not going to be able to be modifying your green dice if I'm attacking you at range 0 also. So and the other thing is it is primary attacks only. So if I had some other type of some other kind of secondary attack, it's not going to happen. Only your primary attacks can be performed at range 0. I don't believe there's any torpedoes that say that they work at range 0 anyway, so I don't even think that there's any kind of crazy stuff like that. Intimidation will be on the banned list, but they didn't go into any other cards in this particular live stream that will be on the banned list as well. So that is kind of a big thing, and I think that's most of the main talking points. There is, this scenario they were running through. There you can see kind of the token right there. That B-wing is contesting that objective, and they'll probably score 2 points at the end of the round. It certainly feels like a very different game. And this will be part of the new standard format. Now, the standard format they talked a little bit about, and how it's, this is how they want you to play once the rules come out. These aren't going to be coming out until late January or early February of 2022. This is supposed to coincide with the points change. The points document that's going to have the Gauntlet, Pride of Mandalore, all those new points cards, all the new card points and ship points and all that stuff is also coming out at the same time. They want all of these things to come out together. They talked about how it is difficult to balance, points and also a new rule set at the same time. So they're giving it a little extra time. That's when we're set to do this. If you're going to LVO, still going to use the existing rule set. So no change in January. Likely until maybe the very, very end of January or early February is when we can actually expect to see these fully published. They also pointed out that they don't want you to try to play with these rules right now. Reason being is there's a lot of subtleties, there's a lot of specifics, a lot of rules reference guide entry type stuff, and they don't want you to play like with just a generalization of the rules, because that might lead to some frustration or might lead to you having a misunderstanding on how things work, so on and so forth. So that's kind of like the big takeaway there. Now the standard format is going to kind of go back to how Hyperspace started out, in that it's only going to have legal cards or legal ships as stuff that's been printed in 2.0. As far as physical ships that have been printed in 2.0. So, if you really like your gunboats and stuff like that, say goodbye to them. You're not going to be able to use those in the standard format until such time as they get printed in the in the second edition packaging. Now, they did say that they're going to try to emphasize reprints of old 1.0 stuff into 2.0. So that is certainly something. But for now, standard will just be the black box packaging stuff, the 2.0 printed stuff. There were questions in the chat on if that will include like things like the U-Wing, which had 2.0 cards, but only came in a 1.0 box. That was kind of a big question. I don't know if that got answered during during the live stream. So that is that's still out there. Now, we're going to go through kind of some of this stuff that's in here, and I want to talk to you about like my thoughts on all of this, because I have some thoughts, and and I think I'm going to try to have them balanced and measured, because it's very easy for somebody who's been playing, X-Wing for a long time to be upset. There were a lot of people very upset with second edition. There were a lot of I was not thrilled with second edition, and I had some of my reasons for that. And I have not been too thrilled about a lot of these other changes. One of the main reasons is because it is change, and it becomes harder to change the way that you remember and play a rule set for a game. Especially a competitive game with people with changes every few years, big changes, because this is a large set of rule changes. We haven't even seen all of it yet. There could even be more things, since they seem to be giving us kind of piecemeal bits of the rules. This does feel like this is most of it, though. But there is there is definitely a lot of interesting things here. Also, the half points rule is gone for the zone control scenario, and possibly others. So that's going to be an interesting thing too. I'm assuming the dogfight one will still have the half points rule, but a lot of these other ones you only score when the ship is destroyed. So what are my thoughts here? I think I want to say that my thoughts are that the team at AMG has kind of misrepresented this new 2.5 core rule set edition. And what I mean by that is, I go back to Will Schick talking about what the goal was when they got X-Wing, and that they wanted to take it back to its roots. They wanted to take it away from being a tower defense game to being a dogfighting game. And that's what prompted all of this. And what we saw today in this demo, I don't feel reflected that. Now, that doesn't mean that these changes won't be fun. It doesn't mean that these scenarios will be boring or unfun. It just means that I don't think the communication matches up to the demonstration. And I'm willing to give this a try. I'm willing to play with these new rule sets and try out some of these new scenarios. But I'm also probably going to play more extended than standard, because I'm not really a scenario person for X-Wing. I like doing some scenarios maybe once every couple of years, but certainly not as the main way to play. Like, standard tournaments are going to be scenarios only, it sounds like. Granted, 1 out of 4 of those will be a dogfighting scenario, but you still have to stay in the center. And with obstacles being as punishing as they are, that might be difficult. So I also wonder about the changes that they have to being able to, like, shoot at range 0. that on its own doesn't sound too terrible, but the way that they sort of delivered it is like, we didn't want a situation where you weren't able to roll dice. We want everybody rolling as much dice as possible. But then they change every single obstacle in the game, including things like rigged cargo chutes and player dropped obstacles, to also stop you from being able to shoot. So I feel like, well, you gave us one way to be able to shoot, but then you took away others. So again, I don't know if their justification for the change matches up to what we're actually seeing. So it's a little confusing to me. I'll admit I'm mostly feeling confused by why they say they're making these changes, because it doesn't match up. And I might think that they seem in some ways like maybe they're just change for the sake of change. I don't really know. But again, that doesn't mean that this won't be fun. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a chance. Once the Mandalore wave comes out, the Gauntlet Fighter, and it, I want to run a Gauntlet and a couple of Fangs. I think that'll be really fun. I wouldn't mind getting some scenario play in and seeing how it works. But I don't have the best. I'm going to give it a chance, but I don't have the best expectations for it, and I'll tell you why. This game that they played today did not feel like a dogfight. Did not feel like X-Wing to me. It felt more like Marvel Crisis Protocol. This stream went longer than most. Most of their streams are an hour. This one went for about an hour and a half. And during the entire game, nobody destroyed anybody's ships. Now, there were some ships removed. IG-11 blew up the Slave 1, so there was a suicide there. There was also a B-Wing that crashed into an obstacle and killed itself. So there was some self-destruction, but nobody, and because of self-destruction, other points were earned. But there was a lot of just flying around trying to get these obstacles, and there was much less shooting than you'd normally get. So again, it makes me wonder why we say that, or AMG says they wanted to take this game back to its roots as a dogfighting game. And then they reduce the game to only 25% dogfighting. Only 1 out of the 4 scenarios will be dogfighting. And even that one is still a change to dogfighting. So while these scenarios aren't necessarily bad, it's not what you said you wanted to do, right? If you wanted it to be back to its roots, then you could have done that without, scenarios were never part of its. Now, granted, there were some, like the Lambda shuttle had like a scenario and things like that, but that wasn't like the tournament standard of how to play, and that's kind of how this seems like it's going to be. So again, I'm pretty skeptical on the motivation for doing this, and how it's gonna feel. If it's still going to feel like X-Wing. Because all of these changes combined, like all of the stuff we talked about today, plus Road, plus all the other cards that are banned, like Luke Skywalker and things like that, and this whole dial thing with perfect knowledge and all this other stuff, it just seems very strange to me. And of course, accusing the X-Wing community of liking tower defense games and things like that. I'll be honest with you, this felt a little bit more like tower defense than X-Wing ever did before. I don't know, and it doesn't even feel like tower defense really. It felt way more like a different kind of game than normal X-Wing, and that's probably part of the intent. I'm not saying it couldn't have been fun, but yeah, it seems so different that it's going to take some getting used to. And so I go into it very cautious. And but it's okay if you feel differently. You might think it looks like a lot of fun, and that's cool because they look. FFG has made scenarios. They made multiple card packs in the past couple of years. They have tons of different scenarios in them. So if you like scenarios, there's already scenarios you can go out and play right now. There's a lot of them. A lot of work went into these. But there's also these scenarios too. And if you like scenarios, maybe these will be fun for you. They could be very interesting. The obstacles being right on top of those things is going to make it very, very tricky to get in there. And then not knowing if you're going first or second with Road could also be pretty tricky, right? So there's a lot of things to this that are going to change up not only the rules that you play by, the tactics that you use, and the goals for winning. So there's a lot of change here. Of course, I'm going to be skeptical. Part of me is starting to become older, so sometimes I'm just a little cranky old man when I look at this stuff. But I think I'd feel better about it if I didn't think that they kind of misrepresented why they, or what their goals were, because this doesn't feel like it's taking it back to a dogfighting game. But again, what I've said like a couple of times already, that doesn't mean it's going to be bad. I guess we'll have to see. All right, you guys, that's all I've got for you today. I want to thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. Stay tuned. We'll be bringing you more information as it comes out. I don't expect much more in the way of news drops from FFG, or AMG rather, for the rest of this year. They did say they'll be previewing IG-11 as well as probably some more stuff in January. So once the holiday break for AMG is over, expect more spoilers to be breaking down. I will be bringing them to you when they come out. We'll talk to you guys soon. I want to thank all my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing. And I couldn't do this without your continued support. So thank you for sticking around. Thanks for helping out the channel. And always remember, don't go swimming in lava without lava protective gear.